Radio Cayman everywhere.
Everywhere.
Can you hear me now?
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Money Sense is brought to you by the Chamber Pension Plan. For further information, visit chamberpension.ky. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Are you aware of the performance of your pension plan? The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan provides quarterly fund fact sheets for our members to stay informed with the plan's performance. For the year ended 30th of April, 2021, the various life cycle funds have provided returns between 10.5% and 43.2%. And our all-in expense ratio for year ended 30th of June, 2020 is currently the lowest it's ever been. 0.72%. Visit chamberpension.ky to review our fund fact sheets. You can see the performance as far back as 10 years. Remember that pensions are a longer-term investment strategy. Focus on the long term rather than the short-term returns. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan continues to perform for you.
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community.
A very good morning and warm welcome once again to Money Sense. I'm Simon Caudry and I have the pleasure of hosting this morning's show with a co-host this morning. I have both moral and physical support in the guise of the Emil Kalinowski. Another good morning to you, Emil.
Pleasure, Simon. Good morning.
Today's show, though, Emil, is not another endless conversation between you and I on some topics of esoteric interest to us, but to others, who knows. But rather, today we're going to stare down the barrel of deceit, obfuscation, chicanery, as we chat with the supremely talented and oratically blessed Grant Williams.
Well, that's quite the most individual introduction I've ever heard. I'm not sure what people think about me now that if you're going to talk about chicanery. And
I wasn't suggesting that you.
Well, I should hope not.
No, we're understanding the chicane, so to speak, that goes on. Grant, this is a pleasure. Now, Grant, this is not your first visit with us. However, it is your first visit this Gregorian, Julian, and Chinese year. So Happy New Year in all three of those.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I shall pass those on to Gregory when I see him.
So, no more light-hearted witticisms. We have work to do. Today we're going to discuss speculative mania and bubbles. Now, let me get this right. You still have your media empire, which is TTM. What is it?
TTMYJ. It's things that make you go hmm.
Things that make you go hmm, and that's on the web.
Correct.
And you can go onto that and learn lots of things. And the reason I say that is because I rather carelessly, a couple of weeks ago, went on there and learnt something and asked you to come on the show to explain it.
You really need to stop that.
Well, when I say learnt, I half learned. And that's why you're on here. But we want to talk about something that's... We're going to talk about various topics, but one of them is in the crypto land right now. People will get excitable, we're going to talk about crypto, but it's actually not quite crypto. It's the bones of the crypto landscape. And you talked about this thing called stable coins and exchanges, and you highlighted to the readers who are reading your literature some of the problems associated with that. So just give us the elements as to what the genesis of this thought process was and why you thought this was a problem.
Yeah, look, it's crypto is obviously a really interesting space, and there's so much fascinating stuff going on in it, and people have been making an awful lot of money. And any time you get something like this, where there's a lot of money to be made, it attracts all kinds of people that want to make a lot of money. And some of them, unfortunately, are less reputable and have a little less integrity than others. And so I was drawn to this story about Tether, which is a stable coin, which allows you to basically...
stable coin, let's go to quick definition.
I was just about to do that. So a stable coin allows you... It basically pegs for every dollar they have in reserves, they issue one Tether stable coin, which allows you to come in and out of crypto without the inconveniences sometimes of bank accounts and money, wiring money and KYC and AML rules. And Tether has become really the backbone of the crypto space. There is so much volume. It's now $64 billion worth of Tethers in existence, which are supposedly backed by $64 billion of cash in bank accounts. The company, which has a group of founders, all of whom have sketchy pasts, and I'll be very happy to make my report available to anyone who's interested by this. Just they can email you and pass it on to me. And the New York Attorney General sued Tether about the claims they were making about all their reserves being backed. And as is the custom in this day and age, there was a settlement where Tether admitted no wrongdoing, paid an $18.5 million fine, which is peanuts in the scheme of things. But they also have to report every quarter the assets they hold that back the $64 billion worth of Tethers in existence. And when those assets were made public, there's an awful lot of skepticism around them. They own a lot of commercial paper. They were very sketchy about whose commercial paper they own. Essentially, they have 3% of those Tethers backed by actual cash. And they've changed the disclaimers on their website to very quietly to acknowledge the fact that they don't actually have it backed by cash. Now, this is not a problem until it's a problem, but when it's a problem, it's a huge problem.
So let's just cut to the chase of what you said there. You said that when Tether first started, it said to investors, every dollar that you invest with us, we will issue a Tether token, and we will keep that dollar somewhere in a bank account, happily safe, locked under a mattress, however it is.
Essentially, yes.
And then roll the clock forward, and when they then said, for every dollar that you gave us, you know how we promised you that we'd keep that $1 locked in our vault. Well, actually, we kept 3 cents.
We kept 3 cents of it, and the rest of it is invested in
something,
commercial paper and loans and all kinds of things, which they're very, very opaque about what those holdings actually are.
That seems to me to be problematic.
Well, as I say, it's not a problem until it's a problem, and when it's a problem, it's a big problem. And so right now, the Tether is attracting the focus of a lot of regulators. Look, and don't get me wrong, a stablecoin is a very, very good idea, right? It's an excellent idea. And if these Tethers were backed very clearly by $1 of cash for every Tether, it'd be fantastic. But they're not, and that could be a big problem. The kind of pro-crypto community are saying this is not an issue and we don't have to worry about it. But the skeptics are saying you don't have to worry about it now. But as I said, if it becomes a problem, it's a huge problem.
A devil's advocate would say it's backed by 3% of cash, but it's backed by 70-ish% of near cash instruments, which is
Correct.
what many corporations do. They invest the cash in things that can be liquidated almost immediately. I think that's okay. I think I think I have a real question around that commercial paper investment.
Correct.
Earlier you said they had a lot of commercial paper. Grant, tell them how you define when you say a lot, you're really understating it.
Well, we're talking 77% of the assets are in commercial paper.
And
now
that but in total dollar terms, their commercial paper holdings are...
Yeah, it's $40 billion, give or take, right? Which would make them...
big amount in
that
terms
would make
of...
them the fourth biggest player in the commercial paper market, and none of the commercial paper dealers have ever dealt with Tether, to the best of their knowledge.
So that would allegedly make them the fourth biggest commercial paper holder.
Right.
Because there's no evidence they hold any of it at the moment.
No, but look, this is one of the problems. That commercial paper, it may be there, but they are not saying whose commercial paper it is. It could be a bunch of low-grade Chinese commercial paper.
It could be Emil Kalinowski paper.
It could be. I mean, I don't think they go that low on the creditworthiness scale. But look, it's one of those things where there's an awful lot of smoke around this thing, which is what drew me to the story. And when you look at the amount of smoke, I've never seen in my career that much smoke without there being a fire somewhere. And because it's become such an important part of the crypto community, and the kind of cogs that keep the crypto world functioning, it potentially is a huge problem.
And the reason it's a cog, sorry, just to if I may, Emil, the reason it's a cog is that if today I own some Bitcoin and tomorrow I want to own some, something else, rather than selling Bitcoin and then having to stick in cash for a little while and whatever the bad problem that has, you can own a stable coin, which is equivalent to cash, and then transact and go and buy the other thing. So it's just a conduit to hold while you're deciding what else you want to buy once you've sold something.
Correct. And
because cash is obviously, real money is far too dangerous to hold for.
Well, and far too
people.
difficult to move in and out of different countries, in and out of jurisdictions because of KYC and AML.
Yeah, if you're the archetypical criminal, it's much easier not to hold cash.
Correct. So it's something that anyone who's in crypto should be aware of, which is really the point of me highlighting the story. The story is still playing out, but it is potentially, if we get a bank run, a good old-fashioned bank run where a lot of people want to cash their Tethers out and redeem US dollars for them, it would have the same effect as we had in 2008 when people were having a run on Lehman Brothers, which is what happened and caused that little catastrophe. The difference being, of course, that was systemic. This affects the crypto world. So the idea of a bailout by the government for the crypto world, which we saw with the financial system, is not necessarily such a certainty.
You keep saying that this is a problem for the crypto world, but let's delve into that further, because I think most people listening to the show have never heard of Tether. They've heard of Bitcoin. So who cares if some little Tether or something there goes belly up? In your report, you make the point that there's a tremendous flow from Tether to Bitcoin. In fact, that maybe Tether is supporting Bitcoin. Can you develop that idea further?
Yeah, it's become the biggest cross trade is between Bitcoin and Tether, and it's a staggering amount of the volume of Bitcoin trading is traded against Tether versus against US
Can you
dollar.
give us a proportion?
Three-quarters of the transactions going through, and obviously that becomes an issue if Tether does get the focus of regulators, which it has right now. There's Fed governors mentioning it specifically as a potential stability issue for the financial system. It leads to greater regulatory oversight. It leads to people wanting answers to questions. And if the answers to those questions are, as the skeptics suggest, problematic, then it's a real worry.
Is there a worry that the reserves that Tether has in this instance could themselves be Bitcoin? And so, because it doesn't tell you what they really are, and therefore part of the price run-up that's happened in Bitcoin could be as a result of something like Tether saying all these billions of dollars that we've got, in order to inflate our reserves and to extract some money for us as owners of this system, we're going to invest it in this speculative thing, and it goes up a lot, we can pocket a huge amount of cash. And then if they were forced to liquidate assets in order to prove what they had, that could actually cause a run itself in Bitcoin, perhaps.
Yeah, look, all of these are possible. I mean, the part of their reserves which could be in Bitcoin is small enough, i.e. the stuff that they've identified as cash, near cash instruments, commercial paper, treasury bills, loans, all this kind of stuff. There's only a small bit left that could be Bitcoin, but who are the loans to? Are the loans to crypto exchanges? Are the loans to crypto companies? We really don't know.
Well, at one point, if I'm not mistaken, they were investing some of their money in debt owned by their own holding company, which could itself then have invested in.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, look, it's incredibly tangled, and I say this story took me a week to write, and my brain at the end of it was just fried from all the various strands coming in. There are guys out there, two guys in particular. Bennett Tomlin and Kaz Pianzi, who've done some extraordinary work in following this down the rabbit hole. And I would urge anyone who's interested in this to seek those guys out there on Twitter and follow them. But, look, the other issue is are the tethers that are being minted backed by dollars? Or are they minting them out of clean, fresh air to keep the price of Bitcoin up? Again, another accusation that's been leveled at them. We don't know the answer to it yet, but it's another accusation that they have to deal with.
More devil's advocate. You guys sound as if you're living in the 1930s. You're asking your money to be backed by something? Come on, gold, silver, that stuff, that era has passed. Grant, why should Tether be backed by anything other than confidence?
Well, because confidence is ephemeral. If you've got this big a portion of the crypto market, and confidence is great until it goes, right? But when it goes, it evaporates in a second, and everybody wants their money back. And that's the classic bank run. When confidence goes in the banking system, this is why they put the FDIC deposit insurance in place. This is why the Fed is there as the lender of last resort. This is why we had the TARP and all the bailouts, because that kind of a loss of confidence in a system means the system's structure and foundations are at risk. Now, as I said, that may not be a huge problem outside the crypto industry, which means it's less likely to attract a massive bailout from regulators. We'll see. It depends how much this leaks into the actual financial system of old. But confidence is always a problem. Anything that's built on confidence, as you and I both know, Emil, is problematic if that confidence goes.
So here's the problem I have, and I'm going to answer your devilish question, young man, which is if I give my parents £100 a month and say, I want you to buy a whole bunch of Skittles for me and put them in that jar, and then in 6 months' time I find out that, lo and behold, damn those evil parents, they've put M&Ms in there, I'm going to be, there's going to be something said, isn't there? That's just not acceptable. So the issue here is that they've said they're going to do one thing, from what I hear, and they've done something else.
Well, it's worse than that. What if they were only putting $80 of M&Ms in that jar a month and pocketing?
Well, I hate M&Ms. Doesn't matter how many they put in. They're evil things. I mean, other sweets are available clearly, but they're evil things. Shouldn't be permitted. I mean, that's the problem we're talking about. There's basically deceit that happened through this process.
It is, yeah. I mean, there is a measure of deceit, or certainly a measure of uncertainty, right? We don't know it's deceit, except for the fact that in the ruling with the New York Attorney General, put on their website, they said that the claims Tether made about their reserves being backed one for one by dollars was a lie. And when the New York Attorney General actually uses those words, that it was a lie, that's a very strong statement.
So don't we know that it was deceitful then?
Yeah, I mean, look, but again, right, that we live in the golden age of fraud. Yeah. And unfortunately, if you look at the ruling and you read it, and then you look at the spin that Tether put on it, the announcement Tether made was, we admitted no wrongdoing, which technically they didn't, right? And in their statement, they said that twice. They said almost verbatim, we admitted no wrongdoing, and what's more, we didn't admit to doing anything wrong. The New York Attorney General on the other side is saying, you lied.
Yeah.
So, look, it's up to... I think the whole point of this is just be aware that this stuff is happening, because it's a major problem that you might not be aware of. And if Tether is as big a problem as the skeptics think it is, then it will have a dramatic impact on Bitcoin. And there was a point in time where one of the C-suite of Tether made a comment about, if we're not careful, Bitcoin could crash below $1,000 unless we sort this out. They're on record as saying that. There are taped online forums where one of the executives of Tether basically admitted to money laundering. It was explaining how they get around problems without having a bank, and opening accounts in different names, moving jurisdictions, stuff like that. Someone actually taped that. It was deleted afterwards once they realized what he'd said, but someone's taped it. It's up on the internet. So as I said, I've never seen so much smoke around anything in my entire career, and that tells me that somewhere there's likely to be a fire. If not now, then in one day soon. Well,
hold that thought, because after the break we will talk about more areas where smoke is found, because it's not the only place in the markets where there's some confusion as to the truthfulness of some of the statements that have been made by management, and we're going to explore those areas further. So join us again in a short moment.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a non-for-profit member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. Chamber Pension has an all-in expense ratio of 0.72% over 16,000 members, $430 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s. And today, we are still strong, secure, and are here for employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or request further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
This is Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands.
And now, more Money Sense.
Welcome back to Money Sense and our conversation with Grant Williams. In the first half of the show, we talked about some of the obfuscation and flimsy facades on which investments can be made. And the purpose of it wasn't to necessarily try to persuade you one way or other, but to encourage critical thinking about investment analysis and investment decision making. Before we go any further, though, I think we're going to take a musical interlude with Emil Kalinowski, who has something to say.
That's right, Grant. Simon, thank you very much. Grant, I wanted to say thank you, and the way I want to say thank you is by telling the audience a little story. And it begins in 1989, when America's cinema reached its pinnacle with the release of Tango and Cash. This was a movie that starred that buxom brunette bombshell Terry Hatcher. It also had Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell and Jack Palance, if that's your thing. Anyways, when the movie came out, the critics were speechless. Roger Ebert said, Words cannot describe how I feel about this movie. Leonard Maltin said, I'm speechless. The point is that very interesting, an amazing coincidence, there's something in finance called contango. You see the movie Tango and Cash. And then there's something in finance called contango, which is about the expected path of prices in commodity markets. Future path. And the opposite of it is backwardation. And what we needed was an enterprising young professional man of leisure, such as myself, to happen on the idea, what if we reimagined Tango and Cash in the sense of a financial movie? Contango and Cash. You see, Simon? And I was waiting for the moment because I needed...
At this point, I'm speechless.
I needed a duo. And I found that duo a few months ago when I saw Travis Kimmel, who was part of your research in the subject that we were just discussing.
Yeah.
With Travis Kimmel was interviewing Stephen Van Meter on Real Vision. And I go, here is my duo, the Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell duo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a treatment, a 60-second movie trailer with music and illustrations. But you know what's missing from this? Class, dignity. A young man who co-founded Real Vision, a young man that's taught us what it's like to travel around the world and interview interesting people, a young man who is doubtful of the crypto, a young man that is in this studio right now. And I said, I'm going to add Mr. Grant Williams to this trailer. And ladies and gentlemen, I had that trailer
here, though. I really am.
I had that trailer illustrated by a professional illustrator, a British man. And ladies and gentlemen, I am now presenting, if you're watching this on YouTube at the Radio K-Man website, I'm about to present an illustration to Grant Williams. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, Paul, you hit it and play the world re-premiere of Contango and Cash. But first, this from Eurodollar Enterprises. A motion picture event of the summer, Contango and Cash. When an international smuggling ring uses the local commodity exchange to send gold into backwardation, two macroeconomists take matters into their own hands and onto the spot market. Starring Travis, the President Kimmel as Contango. You can take delivery of lead, punk. And Stephen the Monarch Van Meter as Cash. You know how I promised to let you close out that trade? Yeah, man, you did, Cash. You did promise. I lied. With Grant Williams as the polite British guy. Well, Chops, you put the markers on, didn't you? This motion picture will never be rated, available only on demand at Real Vision. I am looking for investors right now to make this a real movie. And that's it. As Leonard Maltin once said,
I'm speechless.
That's right.
If my show notes here were written on pieces of paper, I'd right now ripping them up and not knowing where to take the show.
No.
Instead, I'll throw the computer through against the wall. And let's Grant, do you have any speechless or non-speechless
I've come away
reactions?
with a fantastic sketch. Look at that.
Worryingly bugged as well, I think, on the back.
That is by David Parkins, British illustrator, famed for the Beano cartoons. He does illustrations and the covers for The Economist, so it's a real deal.
This is amazing.
Thank you for everything that you've done over the years. This is the best way and the only way I can think of saying thank you for bringing very interesting financial discussions to the Cayman
That's incredibly
Islands.
kind of you. Thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
Yes,
As you were saying all that, and you were talking about Tango and Cash, I had in my mind Turner and Hooch. I went completely down the wrong path.
Yes. No, that was one of those was a dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I didn't realise. Well, anyway, best not explain that any further. Right. What were we talking about? Speculative mania, bubbles,
Yes.
and we've got a few minutes left. So, in the first half of the show, we talked about some of the, shall we say, flimsy foundations on which certain elements of the crypto space, and that's not to criticise Bitcoin, but certain elements of the crypto space are based. But there may be listeners who are, to use Emil's phrase, rushing towards the studio with pickaxes now because we're criticising the crypto landscape. But we don't just need to criticise or critique the crypto landscape. I mean, anything which generates electricity right now, or claims to, or tries to use electricity to power things, seems to be constantly engaged in obfuscation. There's Nicolo, isn't it? The truck
Nicola,
company.
yep,
There's
truck.
Lordstown. I mean, what's going on? And explain. Maybe you can give us a sense of what's happening in those areas.
Well, look, I think it's important to point out that whenever we get to periods in time like we are now, where greed has overtaken fear, and we get these speculative manias, and that's what we're in. The crypto space is a perfect example of that. It all became about this thing going crazy and went from 13,000 to 60,000 in a few months. Everybody's getting rich. Everybody's making money. And that tends to pull other people in from the sidelines who are late to the party, and they see other people making money for with no hard work. And it does attract people who are willing to compromise their integrity to make money. And so what we've seen recently is a whole bunch of these things. We've seen a lot of stuff, as you say, Lordstown Motors, an electric vehicle company, faking orders, basically outright lying about the orders they had.
And saying they had a truck that worked.
Well, yes. But in fairness, they were a little bit... I mean, the other one was Nikola, which produced a video of this amazing truck of theirs, this hydrogen-powered truck, which it turned out had been filmed in a desert on a road with a camber, and the truck had just been rolling down the hill. It didn't actually have a motor. Now, these companies are still trading. At the same time, you've got Elon Musk, who's been taking $10,000 from people for full self-driving for a number of years now, coming out this week and saying, full self-driving is really difficult, autopilot's really hard. So, there are all kinds of things happening which tend to happen at exhaustion points in manias, where people are looking for easy ways to make money. And if you are looking to throw your money into something to try and make a profit, there is always someone who will give you a reason to give it to them. The absence here is an increase in interest rates. If interest rates go up, then suddenly that's when these manias tend to end and when the frauds tend to get uncovered. I think we're a little way away from that at the moment, interest rates going up. But with the inflationary pressure that all this stuff is starting to unleash, if it isn't transitory, which the central banks would have you believe, if the inflation pressure is sticky, then rates will necessarily have to rise. And that could be the point in the cycle where a lot of the fraud is uncovered. And really, the whole thing that people need to understand is just be aware that making free money is generally not something that happens. If you're making easy money, that's great. But just be aware that at this point in the cycle, there are a lot of get-rich-quick schemes. There are a lot of people out there touting technology, touting software that is going to change your life. And with the ability of people to now start SPACs, there's another level there's a greater ability for Wall Street, who understand the rules, to set up vehicles that will take money from retail investors in a way that enriches themselves. And so it's a very dangerous time to be an unsavvy investor.
If I were to send you a Bloomberg message and say, why don't we buy this stock, let's make it go up and we can make a lot of money out of it, you and I would be hauled over the coals by the SEC, the FCA for market manipulation.
Back in the day we would.
Well, right. Isn't that the same thing, though, as what happens on Reddit with AMC and other such stocks?
It's a little different. Look, you and I have taken exams and signed pieces of paper that say we understand the rules, right? So if you've got a bunch of retail traders on Reddit who are coming together in a bulletin board situation saying, hey, why don't we do this? It would be very difficult to go after them because they don't know the rules. They're not financial market professionals. So it gets a bit murky. I mean, have they broken the rules? Yes. Could you argue, well, I didn't even know there was a rule to break? Absolutely, you could. So that won't be the end of this. I don't think it will be class action suits against.
It's a difficult prosecution, although
it really is.
Ignorance of the rules shouldn't be an excuse as to not following the rules.
No. Look, you're right, but still, the bigger problem here, unfortunately, if you read through those bulletin boards, is the lack of sophistication of most of the people on there. And that's not a criticism. They're not financial market professionals. And so, when you talk about...
It's speculation, isn't it? It's
pure
not someone doing
investing,
doing research and analysing.
Flat-out speculation. It's going to the casino and putting your chips on red.
And I think that, if I may, sort of we're close to the closing word here, but to my mind, what I'm hearing you say is that if you want to invest in these sorts of things, whether it be stable coins, whether it be electric car companies, whatever it might be, in most cases, those are speculation as opposed to investing, because fundamentally, it's a lot of hot air underneath a lot of them, which might well come true. It might be that you can develop nuclear fusion, you can do this, you can do that, but there's no evidence at the moment. There's no scientific evidence that you've got what it takes to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, so, I mean, the lesson here is it's fine if you want to invest in these things, but don't put all your chips in these things. Don't put money you can't afford to lose into these things, because, some of them will go to zero. There is no question of that. And if you get caught up in the wrong one and you get sucked in by a great story, and believe me, all these guys are fantastic storytellers. If you get sucked into that and put too much money in, it could be disastrous. And look, it happened in 2000, the dot-com bubble. It happened in 2008. It'll happen again at some point in the future. And really, there are plenty of platforms that will tell you how great the stock market is, how you should put your money in it. There aren't enough people saying, that's fine, but please understand the risks. And that's the point right now, is understand that the risks are getting greater as the cycle gets more and more extended.
Sage and wisdom from the man who has been awarded his award, so to speak. There you go. Fabulous words to end with. Thank you very much, Grant. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we do hope you'll rejoin us at ttmygh.com.
Grant-williams.com. That'll be easier for you. There you go.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Grant-williams.com, and you can learn and read and research a lot more about some of the topics we've been talking about. So I'd really encourage you to look at that. As they say on all these shows, a final note is that this show will be available as a podcast on the CFA Society webpage, and encourage you, if you have a question or topic, and we'll put some links up, please email us at moneysense@candw.ky or tweet us at Moneysense Radio. With that, thank you once again. Goodbye, and do tune in 2 weeks' time.
Money Sense is brought to you by the Chamber Pension Plan. For further information, visit chamberpension.ky. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Please be advised that the pension contribution holiday has been extended until 31st of December 2021. Employers and plan members should ensure arrangements are in place for salary deductions and remittance following this date. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan, keeping you informed. For further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. We're here for you.